You're listening to The Watchers, a show where two women from opposite ends of New Jersey watch TV about a high school mock trial at the end of the world.
Oh, it's so good.
I've been in jail with birds, Misty. Why is Ben the best?
He's the best, and that was my favorite line of this whole episode, I think. No, I have two. That was my
there was another one.
My second favorite line.
You're Andrea.
Thank you. I'm Andrea.
And I'm Jodie. And we watched season 3, episode 4 of Yellowjackets, 12 angry girls and one seemingly drunk Travis, but not really.
They need to send some of these titles back to the drawing board, I think.
Yeah.
Along with Capture the Bone.
I disagree on that one. I think that's a perfect name. But anyway, so we have a few little housekeeping things to do before we start discussing the episode. So why don't you take the first one?
Yeah, there's something sad that I feel like on this show we should talk about, and it's Michelle Trachtenberg died. And folks who weren't familiar with her in general are at least familiar with her if you've been listening to the podcast, because she's in Pete and Pete, and we've covered a few episodes. She plays Little Pete's best friend. I think she was almost exactly my age.
And so crazy.
Yeah. And so I think she's probably a little before your time in terms of, but I feel like I grew up watching her because obviously Pete and Pete, but also she was Harriet the Spy, who it's like Ramona Quimby and Harriet the Spy are like.
We've talked about our mutual like identification with Harriet the Spy before.
And it's whenever people say like, when's the first time you saw yourself represented in media? For me, it's Ramona and Harriet. Like I don't even have to think about it.
Yeah, mine was also probably Ramona and Harriet, and maybe like Encyclopedia Brown.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. And so she was also in Buffy.
Yes.
She's Dawn. She's Buffy's little sister, and people have conflicted feelings about her, but I love Dawn. And she was also, Jodie, little known fact, in a Fall Out Boy video. So I
had no idea of that.
And she's also, people I think most know her from Gossip Girl. I don't want to get into the details of her passing, but she wasn't healthy in general, and it's really sad. And I felt like this show especially is not one where we should.
It feels to me like kind of for me like when Shannon Doherty died.
Yeah, exactly.
Like that was sort of my generation person that I didn't necessarily identify with, but was really important.
Right. And again, kind of grew up alongside in a way. And so that's really hard whenever somebody like that passes. So I just wanted to take a second to.
No, definitely. I'm glad we talked about it.
And now I'm going to put you in the awkward position of, I know you have something silly.
I know. I'm going to take a hard left turn here for something silly for us to kind of cleanse the palate. I'm going to bring back an old favorite for the old heads of the Watchers, which I don't know there are any, but if there are, I'm going to bring back something that will make you very happy. I keep pulling it out because I just can't wait. I want to bring back Tawny's Accent Corner.
Oh, thank God.
I feel like we need this right now, just in the way the world is and the news and life. We just need a little bit of Tawny Cypress's New Jersey accent. So I'm going to play two things for you.
Oh, thank God.
This is the first one.
I'll say an audition that I did that wasn't a high per se, but I was really angry. I had to go in and play a boxer, and these girls were talking throughout the room while I was trying to prepare. And I was getting angrier and angrier and angrier. And finally I got up and I was like, listen, you guys, take it outside if you're going to talk. I'm trying to concentrate. I'm done. And they got all flustered and they left, and I felt so bad. But I went in with that energy and nailed the part, got the part. And I was like, I have to remember that. I have to remember if I'm going in for something like that angry and powerful to maybe yell at somebody beforehand.
I thought it was going to end with, I need to remember I'm from Jersey. But that's the same thing.
Okay.
Perfect. It's not just the talk, which is good, but the way she says, the way she leans into the word done is
I know. That was the one for me.
Yeah.
That was the one. Because the talk was a bit like accented, like on purpose. But it's when she has that natural, like, I'm done.
Exactly.
It's,
I love her so much.
I know, me too. Okay, wait,
also,
this next one.
What movie where Tawny's playing a boxer? Because
I know, I need
maybe
to see
we need to see that.
So this is from the part of the interview where they're talking about her studying acting. And this is like, I don't even know if you're going to get this reference, but I think you will. I don't know if it's just North Jersey or if it's Jersey.
I do recommend studying. I mean, it's great. You know, it's like there's an old commercial in New Jersey about Apex Technical School. And once you learned how to use a tool, it went into your toolbox and you kept it forever. And that's how I feel about, acting techniques and stuff.
Okay.
Oh, she's perfect.
You didn't have the Apex Technical School, or did you?
Those commercials definitely made it down my way, for sure.
Okay. I thought so. I have one more. This one, I don't know that she did this on purpose, and it's just so hilarious to me. She's talking about a bad acting experience.
Okay.
I've had a co-star who did not learn any of their lines and would actually hold the paper in front of them while they were acting, hold their sides and just put them down, look at the thing, put it down and do that. And they were so mad at me for memorizing lines because I would mess up and they'd go, ugh, another take. And I was like, just use the paper. Just use the paper. And I'm like, I'm fucking acting over here. I'm sorry to curse. But
You're
I'm
allowed
like,
to curse here. We curse here.
I'm like, I'm acting, for crying out loud. What are you doing?
I'm fucking acting here.
She's just perfect.
I love her so, so much. I felt like I needed that to start my day.
So glad you brought that back.
I haven't even finished the interview. It's actually quite a long interview. It was posted yesterday.
Okay.
So, and I'm sure there'll be more. Maybe she'll call herself a Jersey tomato again if we're
As
lucky.
we all call ourselves all the time.
Yeah, as the thing we've always known.
I love Tawny's accent corner.
She's the best. So anyway, just Tawny appreciation moment over here. Yeah, but that whole interview, we should link to it in the show notes. She's just a fucking delight. Okay, the actual episode we should talk about. Mm-hmm. I'm curious how you felt in general before we get really specific.
If you just let this show just be,
I know,
you can have a great time. But
we don't need to go too deep into this, but I do think that a little bit of it is the lost of it all and the the rise of the mystery box show and the Redditing of theories and the screenshotting culture. And we just want so much from every single one of these shows. And we want them to have the perfect answer to the and every note to kind of never miss.
Right.
And I'm perfectly guilty of that. But I do like to remember, and this season so far has helped me to remember that this is mostly a good time. There's a lot about trauma in here, and I have a feeling we're going down that road more at the end of the season, just like we have before, that we're going to have a few less funny moments and a few more really wrenching, maybe disgusting moments. But it's still a bunch of 40-something women being hilarious on my television screen. Right. And also the teen cast is great, but they're perfectly happy to just kind of let the Walter S. Machina of it all take care of some things that seem a little crazy. But I still get to see Christina Ricci and Tawny Cypress and fucking Lauren Ambrose, my childhood crush, on my TV screen once a week, being badasses. So we're going to start in the wilderness because we tie it up in the present day with a pretty big event. So we'll start with our teen girls with Ben's march to his possible death through the woods.
But of course, we know he can't die here.
Oh my God, we're doing this every week?
Okay, no, I'll let it go after this one, but it's usually a joke, but now it's it's
a wish.
It's a defense mechanism.
I know. I don't want him to die either, but every single episode this season has been pushing towards that sense of exposition we get about a person before we lose them.
I know. My heart.
I know. I can't, especially after this episode.
And the problem too is everybody being and I'm with you, do we have to lean into another bury your gaze? But everybody on the show is queer and people are going to die.
That makes it easier. Yeah, it's true. So they're marching Ben back from the cave to the camp. And the first thing I wrote was, so the camp is real because he sees it. Well, maybe.
I again, call me Severance because I'm of two minds.
Oh my God. You're so happy with that line.
But
there we go.
I'm sorry that I can't stop it sooner. We just have to live with this right now.
Wait it out.
But
God, that is long.
Yeah, it's way too long. But they really, I think, are being pretty thoughtful about this because once again, we see Ben see the camp. It's funny because I saw somebody on TikTok say, we need to stop calling these women unreliable narrators because they're not narrating the story. So all we're seeing is how they're talking about it and what's happening, but we're watching it through the camera. But like I said last week, I still think we need to be watching The Wilderness as if we're watching it through one of their eyes.
Absolutely. I do think we're still dealing with unreliable narrators. But I will say that in terms of the theory that they didn't actually create that amazing space and that they've got dead animals in a pen and all of that, I am at the point of probably letting that one go, because I do think that often with this show, the theories go so deep. Like they're writing their show and we are reading it the way we read things. And so maybe they just made it warm because it was summer.
Right.
You
and
know?
That's the thing, is there are so many ways, because did they make it warm because it's summer, and also they really want that stark contrast, and that for the girls this feels,
it's the calm before the storm.
Right.
Like we know what they're about to do in the next winter. And so that contrast could very easily be just for the purpose of that contrast, right? So when it goes bad again, you're like, Jesus Christ, we're here again.
yes, that. Also, we see Ben see the camp, and it focuses in on things that feel like, oh, he's really seeing those things. And is it Ben seeing it the way we did at first? We're like, wow, this is really impressive that they've actually done this. Or is it just that we're still seeing it through the fractured memories of these women? Or,
That's possible.
So I'm still open to all of them. My first thought was the same as yours, except for one thing that's happening throughout this part of the episode.
Akilah and her bunny.
Akilah and her bunny.
I know. I do think that if there's an argument for continuing to believe that we're not actually seeing what's real there, it's that Akilah is holding this bunny the entire time, like she held that stupid mouse that was a corpse. Like, that is to me the one sign of like, wait, why is she holding this extremely tame bunny in her arms this whole time?
Right. So again, I'm open to any and all possibilities. I don't know what I want it to be. I don't really have a way.
I enjoyed the reveal at the time that Akilah was cuddling a like dried up mouse. Like, I thought that was really horrifying and funny and interesting. I don't know if it would hit the same way a second time if we saw their camp being really decimated, because we know they survive another like
that's a good point too.
Half a year plus.
Right.
So if it was really that bad, it would be hard to believe that they actually made it.
Right. And sometimes the TV show, that's a really good point.
Yeah.
And also sometimes the TV show knows that it's not being realistic, but you're allowed to because it's TV. And it's nice.
Can we bring up Walter's plot again? Like,
Exactly.
I mean, there's lots of unrealistic shit.
Yeah. And it's really nice to look at the camp right now. Like, it just feels good and interesting and cool and different. And so I'm also totally fine if that's what we're watching.
And Travis is in his hammock, which honestly looks kind of nice.
Yeah.
Nice little setup he's got going.
He's got all of Javi's drawings.
Yeah, he saved him from the fire.
Mm-hmm.
And the wolf. I was trying to figure out what he's holding for a while. He's holding the carved wolf.
The wolf. Oh,
yeah.
my heart.
I do think it's notable that they're still kind of connecting him back to Javi. This, we'll talk about it more when we get to the trial, but I felt like, I don't know what's happening with Travis this episode. He's mentioned in the title specifically. He says like 3 words the whole time, but the camera goes to him a lot.
And he's
kind of doing he's doing his own drawings now.
Yeah, and he's holding the King of Hearts at one point in his hand. Like, there's just a lot of stuff where it's like,
I feel like
remember
they're pointing
Travis
at him
is
a lot.
here too.
Yeah, exactly. But they're bringing Ben back. He's stumbling. Nat's looking worried. The 3 girls that maybe had a shared dream, maybe had their own dreams, are kind of talking about how weird it was. I don't think they've come down in either direction for sure to us necessarily about whether it was a shared dream or not. They're kind of leaving it open-ended. He and Lottie are sort of like sleepily at the camp waiting. And so they bring Ben back, and Shauna immediately talks about wanting to make him pay. Shauna is like, all of the stuff that Sophie and Elise said before the season about how she has no fucks left to give. I don't think they use that phrase, but is proving true here. It's very hard to root for Shauna at all in this episode, in both timelines, but especially in this one.
Yeah, I agree. I think
she's just all about vengeance and violence and will not hear anything to the contrary. And it's so funny. We were talking last week about how Lottie was seeming more and more flimsy in her, like, the absurdity of her convictions seems to be more noticeable as we go. And I really saw it in the teen timeline this week.
Absolutely.
Like, it was literally like checking in with each person. It was like Shauna wants to make Coach pay. Lottie wants it to decide. And Mel is like, I'm with Shauna. She's my girl.
They are really ramping Mel up.
And Nat was like, everybody, we're going to pretend we're still in a civilization.
Continues to be the only one that I am always rooting for. And always, like, she just stays this group's moral compass as best she can. Yeah.
And I think, like, weirdly, we'll get into it with the trial, but weirdly, I was also rooting for Misty this episode.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Surprisingly good lawyering. But they're covering that thing with the wood top again, which we still haven't really figured out what that is.
Yeah.
Did I miss something? Like, what is that?
I don't think so. In my head,
is it a table?
It's I
guess it's a table.
Just their table, but it does feel
looks like a casket.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
and or
it's
a smoker.
The shape of a casket. But they're arguing about, like, whether it should be unanimous or 2/3 or simple majority.
It's really funny to watch them try to figure out what a trial should be. Ty's first trial, by the way.
This is so high school. I mean, they say it, but it's so high school mock trial. It's so Lord of the Flies, which I'm sure we'll talk about. It's so kids dressing up and playing adults. Like, this is one of the more clear moments we've seen that. I feel like there's times where that's the subtext, but the way it's filmed is so mystical that we're, like, kind of in with them in the belief that it's not that. This, we're watching them, like, I mean, me as a 40-something person being like, these fucking children and their play acting.
Exactly.
Like, you know, it was really obvious.
Yeah, it was stressful and also a little sad. And also, whenever I get so annoyed with Shauna, and I'm like, man, she's being such an asshole and blah, blah, blah. And all of the posts in the Facebook group about how much we all hate Shauna, I'm like, she's a kid. It actually made me think this week a little bit about when we watched We Can Be Heroes and saying, like, it's so, that you see a kid behaving badly. Yep. And you remember that.
Although,
like, I'm not saying
it's behavior versus Shauna's.
Well, but that's my point, though.
I know.
Is that, like, her behavior is obviously much heightened and bigger and whatever, but she is still just a kid.
Totally. I do think, though, that we can't forget that all of these people have suffered a tragedy. Right. All of them watched their friends die. That's true. Like, Travis lost his father and his brother and then ate his brother. Yeah. Well, is not murdering people.
It's the thing of, like, all of these girls suffered and Travis suffered tragedy. Yeah. But they brought who they were before in with them. And Shauna was a angry, repressed girl to begin with. In the same way that I'm always like, Misty was ready to rock. Like, she 100%. Came in ready to survive this.
Yeah. And Travis was like a sulky teen follower boy who just didn't want to do anything and would be forced into whatever he actually accomplished.
And so we're seeing all of that, like what happens in a
pressure cooker?
It's like all of these people in a pressure cooker, you know, we're seeing what really, you know, what kind of rises to the surface then. Yeah. So
they decide Ty's going to be the prosecution, which makes sense. I mean, you can't have it be Shauna.
Could you imagine?
She's just going to rip him apart.
No. Maybe literally.
Yes. And then they decide that Misty should defend him because it's his only chance at a fair trial. As someone who once loved him.
Right, exactly. He used to be your boyfriend. Yeah. Nat is so open about wanting to save his life.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's I think it's both her strength and her downfall. Like, she's not cut out for the ruthless kind of leadership they're about to need.
That's right.
You know? And, like, we got a lot of insight into Nat in this episode, through, like, really subtle things. But so last week I theorized that maybe Misty started the cabin fire. The way that she acted, we're always a little suspicious of Misty being indignant because she acts a lot and she pretends a lot.
Right.
But she seemed really actually angry at him.
I think
and
so.
believed he started the fire.
Yeah. And
so I'm kind of pulling back on my maybe it's Misty theory.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. I still think the most likely candidates are Ty.
Yep.
Maybe Van, but I think it's more that Van knows Ty did it. Did Ty do that?
Possibly.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then accident. Yes.
Gas leak.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think that that's looking more and more likely as we tally up all the times in this show where there's been a conspiracy about something and it's just the brakes failed, which we'll get to, which I brought up last week. So yeah, the fact that to me, it's seeming more and more likely, especially given Van's vision, that they just a spark from the fireplace ignited because there's gas in the area and burned the shit out of the cabin.
It's so funny that you and I especially spend a lot of time saying, like, these girls are so desperate for there to be something else going on and they spend blah, blah, blah. But you, me, other people watching the show, especially those who are 100% supernatural, are fully doing the same thing. Because I was about to say, they keep showing us over and over again.
I know.
That it's like, and then we're all going to be surprised when we get to the end.
I will tell you something.
Nothing happening.
Andrea, I will not.
No, neither will I, obviously.
But this whole time, I love entertaining all these theories. But when I went on that stupid rant about the mystery child that Javi was talking to, this is kind of what I was getting at, in that the creators of this show, they're having fun playing with us, but I really feel like so much of what we've theorized about this show is us taking a crumb that to them means very little or means something completely different.
Right.
And I'm not saying that we're like wrong for doing
or
that.
That's the point, is that they want us to be watching it this way,
totally.
Not that it's like...
I mean, the whole Adam Martin thing. They told us all along in their words from their mouths that Adam Martin was just a sweet boy who fell for Shauna. And we're all like, no, he is a reincarnation of a dead boy from the woods. Not letting it go.
Just to go back to the mystery child, I still think that it can be not supernatural at all and still other stuff. Again, every time I say this, I need this disclaimer running underneath me all the time, always. I made it last week. I think it is very likely that it just is what it is, and it's these girls desperate to make meaning because we are all desperate to make meaning, and it is their downfall and continues to be their downfall until they're all dead.
Yeah.
That's on the back burner always. Also, I think there's a chance that, like, Javi did have a friend who is the father of the cabin's daughter still living in the woods. I think that's fun. I think
it's fun. I don't think it's possible, but I'm happy to play with those ideas. I think about this in terms of, like, what do I think about daily life, right? I am not a person who really believes that much in the supernatural, but I am not certain in my convictions.
Right.
I am open. Like, I keep mentioning The Ringer every week, but in the Ringer podcasts, like, Joanna Robinson always says, hold your theories lightly, you know? And that's how I feel about life. I'm like, I'm basically an atheist, but I could be convinced. Show me. I would love that to be true. I would love there to be some magical land where my dad's waiting, you know?
Right.
But, like, I don't believe it right now. That doesn't mean I might never.
And I'm not making my daily choices and how I move through the world based on it.
Yes.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
They say, hold on loosely, don't let go.
Don't let go.
Because if you cling too tightly, you're going to lose control.
Exactly.
Hey, why hasn't that been in this show yet? That's the whole show, Jodie.
I know.
Wow. I cracked this thing wide open.
You cracked the case.
These girls.
Citizen detective over here.
Yeah, just I need to hold on loosely.
I'm so happy we got the Citizen Detective board back. That made me very happy at the end. But anyway.
Yes.
So.
I like that I said to you, hold on, everybody. I said to Jodie, I was like, yeah. Start with the wilderness like you said. That sounds good. I don't think it'll take us that long to get through the wilderness because it's just the trial. And now we're 35 minutes into this episode.
Yeah, I didn't believe you. So Misty's going to defend him. She seems legitimately mad. But Nat manipulates her very cleanly there by saying, you're the only one that can save his life. Perfect way to get Misty to get involved. We get a quick moment of Aquila. Aquila has been changed back again by her cave experience.
Lottie is pumped. Lottie's she's psyched.
I do like, though, that Aquila doesn't just jump right in. She's like, I didn't really want to come here.
Yeah. A reluctant
I do like
disciple.
Aquila a lot.
I really like Aquila.
She seems very sweet, but then she's surprisingly blunt in moments in a way that I really appreciate.
She is where my little theory I told you I'm starting to develop.
Okay.
This is where it first pops in. So I might just mark a few things till we get to the end of the episode.
Great.
But
awesome.
Lottie's curiosity about the dream in the cave is curious to me. Yeah.
She wants to know more about the cave. She tells Aquila she had a vision because Aquila says it felt like a memory, but not like, and so Lottie is immediately like, cool, you had a vision. Tell me more and tell me about the cave. Interesting. Now we get one of my favorite scenes of this episode. Ben and any of the girls, there's just a comedy there, but especially our like quirkier, funnier ones.
Right.
And so Misty goes to the duck pen where Coach is being held and punches him. But this is the thing. Now I'm like fully off of my maybe Misty did it train because she seems furious and she says, how could you do this to me?
Right.
It's about her, right?
Yes.
I thought we were friends.
I sometimes, and then I die. So sometimes Misty lets this like, I don't know how to explain it, but like there's something that bubbles to the surface with Misty where like she says, I thought we were friends. She doesn't say what you expect, which is like, I thought you loved me or something like that. She says something that feels a little more like a little less delusional.
Yeah. And she brings up the fact that she talked him out of killing himself, you know, and it seems like there's a real hurt there. And he just like flatly says like, I didn't burn down the cabin. And
I wish he would be a little more
specific.
Well, specific and also adamant about that out loud more often in this episode. I feel
he's so resigned to his fate. I think at this point, he's like, these girls are gone. They're going to kill me.
Right. And what does living here really do for me anyway?
Yeah.
So.
But she says, prove it. And then we get one of the best little sections. How? With a high school mock trial at the end of the world? I'm in a jail with birds,
At the end
Misty.
of the fucking world, I think he says.
Yeah, at the end of the fucking world. I'm in a jail with birds, Misty. He calls it a farce. And we see her kind of turn here and decide she's going to try to save him. I wrote, yikes, putting your fate in Misty's hands. But turns out, I was mostly wrong.
Yeah.
She did a great job.
She did a great job. It just doesn't matter because these girls are crazy.
Yeah.
And Misty is like loyal to a fault. And so the second she decides Ben didn't actually betray her, she's
in.
She's totally in.
Yeah. We have Van as our bailiff, of course. She loves a speech.
Yeah, she
loves an outfit and a speech.
She really does. I hope we get to see more of that in the adult timeline because we really haven't.
No, adult Van is just so defeated.
Yeah, exactly.
Young Van is all into putting on a cloak and orating.
It is interesting to see how ceremony develops with these girls because this is a big level 100%.
Up. Yeah, I know. Like the clothes, they've got their like lawyering sashes on, their like official outfits. Nat comes out in a robe and the antler headdress. Yep,
it's a great look.
But I wrote Van as the bailiff, Nat in her crown. They are so silly.
Yeah,
because the silliness is like forefront here, like the kind of ridiculousness of this. I also wrote these fucking kids and their nonsense.
It is so. I know, obviously, it's Lord of the Flies, the show from day one.
Yes.
Lost meets Lord of the Flies meets like Mean Girls. I think Lord of the Flies meets Mean Girls is direct from Bart and Ashley.
I think so too.
But for some reason, it just really feels like it's been coming through these last couple of episodes.
Well, and I read somewhere that apparently the idea of a trial of Jack from Lord of the Flies is often used as a popular mock trial in high school. I was not doing mock trial in high school. I was in my smoking behind the cafeteria era.
Yeah, exactly.
But apparently that was a thing. So that makes some sense. Our first witness, our new favorite, or your old favorite.
Yeah.
Mari.
Maria Barra. Oh, shit.
But the way she says it is so good.
Mm-hmm.
This little line read is incredible. She's like, oh, shit.
Yeah, like me, I guess.
We're doing this.
I guess we're doing this thing.
Okay. Misty tells Ben to smile. He's like, what? But then there's this swearing in.
Hold on. This is there are a couple of moments in this episode where I know we talk all the time about how good the counterparts are at leaning into connecting their past and present selves.
Right.
But Misty's, I'm sticking my neck out for you, do not make me look stupid, is so adult Misty.
Yeah.
It's
totally.
very like, you only say I want my lawyer, that's why I put it on the cake. Like that. It just felt like the same, or the cookie, pardon me. Andrea. That's why I put it on the cookie.
You got a cookie. You got to know that one.
It's a good point. You're right. But it, like, the energy is so similar here.
No,
it's
that's really true. Yeah, and I also noticed in this episode a lot, we're going in the timeline order, so we're not going to talk about it as much, but in this episode they did so much. Like Ty's ending a scene on Ty's face in the adult timeline and switching right to Ty in the teen timeline, excuse me.
Yeah, because it's kind of like, oh, do you all think it's so unbelievable what they're doing as adults? Well, remember what was happening when they were kids.
Yeah.
Because...
And they did more of that, I think, in the first season, and I think people have... to me, unrightfully complained that there's too much disconnect. I don't see the disconnect, but they're like making the connections more obvious in this episode.
Agreed.
So Mari comes up to the stand. Lottie swears her in, sort of.
This is so funny.
This speech is hilarious.
Everything about this is so...
I know. Do you have the speech? Because I meant to write it down and I didn't. It's the funniest fucking thing. It is so far from trying to swear someone in to tell... Like, she never mentions telling the truth one time.
No, because she doesn't care.
No.
And of course, they use a deck of cards because they don't have a Bible. And in fact...
And that's how the wilderness chooses.
Exactly.
Yes. That's their religion.
Lottie says, repeat after me. I vow by the wilderness to honor its virtue with my own. What it asks, I will answer. What it says, I will listen. What it needs, So first of all, too much. Repeat after me when. But then Nat interrupts her and says she swears to tell the truth, the whole truth, and that's it. So help her, all of us.
All of us. I know.
It's such a little like, it's so good.
Yeah, there's so much packed in there. But Lottie sounds so ridiculous when because the thing is, what she's missing now is followers. She has two. She has Travis and Akilah. But without the group behind her and without them elevating her as the leader, she comes off as a sham.
Mm-hmm. And like you said last week, charlatan, which I've been thinking about all week. We must have made this connection joke, whatever, before, but her name is literally Charlotte.
I don't know that I even noticed that I did that.
And she's a charlatan.
Yeah. So they start questioning Mari, and at first she's kind of got her indignant pants on. But then she the facts that she has are not what they want them to be. Like she says, he made me eat bats and he kept talking to God knows who. And then she says he didn't want us coming to get payback. But then Misty immediately is like, oh, look, an opening.
Right.
Payback for what?
Right. But the question should be, did he use the word payback? Because he never said that.
Yeah. But you know what happens when you assume, Andrea.
I like that they kind of like it.
Yeah.
They're kind of into Misty's whole shit in this episode.
It's really funny. Like, she's so serious and yet so Misty at the same time.
Exactly.
But she makes such good points.
Yeah, she does.
He could have killed her so many times. He could have left her in the pit. He could have killed her in the cave. He could have done a million things to, like, harm her, and he did not.
It doesn't matter. And I knew it didn't matter the whole time. There's one moment, obviously, where you think maybe, but it's like, these girls
it didn't matter.
There's no
They don't
logic.
want to know the truth.
No. And they never have, and they, never will.
Yeah. Yeah. I do like that Misty is like, because we've got the Misty and Shauna conflict in the present, Misty is poking at Shauna so much this episode.
Yeah, totally.
She talks about how, he could have left her there to rot. I know Shauna would. And everyone's like, well, yeah.
Yeah.
But Misty is like, she gets Mari to say he didn't want me to die in there. And then Misty calls Shauna as a witness. This is interesting. I wrote, Misty's kind of good at this. She's leading Shauna to get mad about the whole thing and to pull out of her the possibility that Shauna could have done it. She's planting that reasonable doubt.
Exactly. Yeah. But again,
it could have been Shauna, it could have been Lottie, it could have been any of them. But this is what I was talking about last week when I was saying, like, the fact that it happens the night that Nat is chosen as the leader gives like motive to a couple of people that thought they were going to be chosen.
Exactly.
That doesn't mean that I think that they did it. I don't think Shauna did it. I don't think Misty did it now. But Misty's explanation for why Shauna would have done it is just Misty telling on herself.
Yes.
Like, I don't think she did it, but that's like would have been her reason had she done it.
The point that Misty is making and that the show is sort of making about everything all the time is like, these girls have their minds, these women have their minds so made up.
Yeah.
That you're right. I don't think it was most of them. The possibility is unlikely, but the possibility is there. But
it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter at all.
They've decided.
Well, and Shauna really brings it home, and it's something that has been the case all along. But when she says, like, the problem is like, he judges us. He judged us this whole time. He's not one of us, and he hates that. It's
true, and it's not. Like, he's not one of them, but they hate that.
But exactly, that's their fear of being judged.
Yeah. Exactly, because of they know what they're doing,
and rightly so.
Yeah, exactly.
They should be being judged now.
Yeah, but she does bring up the thing that kind of made it possible for me to even believe that Coach burned down the cabin, which is that he walked away during her terrible labor and did not help. Right, like he had given up by then. He was in the middle of he was starving. He hadn't eaten like they had. He was hallucinating his ex-boyfriend, and he felt like these people are too far gone. But you can see how that action both hurt her and also made her believe that he could do something like this.
Again, it's like, fight or flight, or freeze.
He froze.
And he froze. Yeah. And that is very different from setting fire to a cabin full of teen girls. But yes, like you said, I can see why Shauna isn't seeing that distinction.
It was the only thing that made it possible in my head to believe he had actually done it. Right. Because otherwise, if they hadn't had that scene and then it turned out he had, I would have felt cheated by the plot. Like, it wouldn't have made sense. Right. I noticed here Travis drawing Akilah holding the bunny. They linger on Akilah with the two red shirts holding the stupid bunny.
That's what I mean.
I know. We'll talk about the bunny. But I did note also here Ben has some tears when she brings this up. And I didn't know at the time that meant he was going to address it later. But it was like clear that he wasn't immune to the feeling bad about that. Like we have had no sense since then that this is even something he still thinks about. But now we know he does.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and then next is Lottie on the stand, and this is when Misty really does the, like, it could have been any one of us, and that's reasonable doubt. It could have been Coach Scott, or it could be Shauna. She's, as I previously said, which I just really liked as a little, like, remember that when I said that?
Yep.
And she
it's
says,
very
like,
clever.
Yeah, she says, like, or Jen, she didn't come to all the prayer circles, and then Jen's like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Like, you people usually leave me out of things.
I know. It's like, I'm here. But she does it in such a way where it's really smart, actually, because if she just outright starts accusing people, everyone's going to be like, come on. But she actually says, no, I'm not saying you did.
Right.
I'm saying you could have. Exactly. And you had a reason, and that so did many of us.
Like Melissa, who could go either way, probably.
Yeah. That was a good line.
Misty's doing a better job of being a lawyer than Ty, so hopefully law school did some...
I don't know. I really, she missed her calling because she's clearly not a very good nurse.
Right. That's a good point. This is where I got a little bit of hope that we've been worried about Ben dying, and that maybe if he does die, though we know he makes it back, that if he does die, it won't necessarily be directly at their hands, was my thought at this point. That, like, oh, is it going to be even worse if...
But what leads up to him getting on the stand is... Shauna. Right. Like... doing her behind the scenes machinations when she realizes that it's not going well. She, like, goes up to Ty and tells her that Misty knows that Nat knows where Coach is. And Ty rightfully is like, you're just saying this now? Like, how long have you known this?
Right.
And Shauna's like, no, look over there. Be mad at someone else.
Yeah, it's so Shauna to keep that information for herself, to use it just as a tool. She has, again, no concern or loyalty or anything to anybody. But because of that, then Ty calls Nat to the stand. And I think it's Misty. Somebody says, like, this is unprecedented. And then that's when Nat says, all of this is unprecedented, which I really like. But
when Ty calls Nat to the stand, there's a really sort of symbolic, like, she'd already taken off the crown earlier pretty quickly. But she takes off, Ty asks her to take off the robe too. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, she's not going to be in this role much longer. And Ty calls her, like, Your Honor or something. And Nat's like, just Nat.
Right.
Like, she knows, I think, that she's losing her power here.
Exactly.
But then Misty realizes that, like, things start to fall apart. People are yelling at each other. Misty's yelling order. So she calls Coach Scott. And she's trying to humanize him, but he won't have it. And Misty asks, like, why did you spend so much time there? Like 9 years if you hated it. Also, I just want to quickly point out, we finally have a canonical pronunciation of the town. We've pronounced it a couple of different ways. Misty or someone says it here as Wiskayak. Like Wiskayak. So now we know.
I think I've been saying Wiskayak this whole time.
I think I have too.
Interesting.
But during this whole beginning part of the witness questioning, Misty starts to look so sad that, like, he didn't actually like them.
I know.
But then, of course, he says, you know, of course I ended up caring about you guys too. You were annoyingly fucking relentless. You were underdogs. And it's like, I believe this part. There's some things later he says where I'm like, he's flattering them. But
yeah,
he tells them about his family, which we didn't know anything about his family.
Don't tell me anything about your family, Ben. I know what that means.
I know.
Don't tell me. Don't tell me.
Ugh. But he says, if I wanted to hurt you...
This is so good. And he just clock.
So many options. And none of them were... I noticed all of them were back home beforehand. I think that was... I don't know if it was intentional or not, but it was smart on his part to remind them of their previous relationship where he was sort of the adult. And he says, like... So we also find out canonically that, which we weren't sure of, not Nat, Van and Ty were in a relationship before the crash. We thought they might have been, but that it might have developed, and it was a crush before, but they were clearly, like, sneaking around beforehand. He tells a funny story about how he, like, had to lie and say that he puked in, like, 7 different rooms to cover for them.
It's very cute. I love him so much.
Yeah, and you can see it's working on them. You know, he said he wanted to look out for them, and people are starting to have reactions, and Ty and Shauna especially are not happy about it.
And also that red shirt, who I think we still don't have a name for, was really crying. So I don't know what her life with Ben was like back home.
Either
but maybe
Robin
they were,
or someone else. I can't remember the other one's name.
But maybe they were really close before.
Yeah.
So I wrote, who is crying? I don't know who that is.
Yeah.
We get another shot of that bunny in this little montage, too.
Oh, my God, I know.
Or not montage, this scene, too.
Yeah. But Misty wants to know then why he left them. And he says, we got here, and Jesus, you cut my fucking leg off. I was scared that maybe I was next.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Yeah.
Obviously.
It, again, shows sort of how disconnected from their own, like, lack of, waning humanity.
Yeah.
That
they can't see it.
Yeah, like, what do you mean, why?
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, it's not like they would necessarily deny that they considered him to be maybe next.
Right.
But he says, but this is where there's like a turn that you texted me that you ugly cried twice during this episode. And I said that we're very different people. I didn't cry at all.
I can't believe Ben didn't get you.
It did get me. It just didn't get me to the point of crying. I think I was half awake, but it got me.
Right. Okay.
I just didn't shed tears.
I was going to say, I think your it got me is my ugly cry, because I'm ready to cry at anything at all times.
Yeah, it takes a lot for me.
Right. And it takes nothing for me.
Right. But yeah, the honesty of him looking directly at Shauna and being like, I was a coward.
It was when he said that he used the words embarrassed and ashamed. And I was like, that's hard for anybody to admit. To say those
Yeah.
words out loud about anything is really hard.
And he says, I am so fucking sorry, Shauna, like right to her. And she cannot take it.
No.
She can't hear it.
And it really, that was, I was really struck by that.
And also, like, it really, for the Ben defenders out there who said, like, I can't see him
We call ourselves Befenders.
Defenders.
Yeah.
That we couldn't picture him having that turn. This was really, like, well received proof for me that he cared this whole time. He was just beaten down by the whole thing.
Right. I think that's fair.
Yeah. This is the one where, and he says, I fucked up by judging you. He says, I'm in awe of all of you. This is where he's kind of blowing smoke up their asses.
Another moment where I'm like, is he looking around and seeing how scary things really are here? And is like, let me make one more play for my life. And I may not understand your belief system.
Yeah.
Which is a really like specific choice of words there, I think. But I didn't try to kill you.
Yeah. I was, in my notes, I was quoting him as he says, I'm in awe of all of you. I fucked up by judging you. And then I just wrote, that bunny is creeping me out.
Yeah, me too.
But people are crying. Mari's nodding. Mm-hmm. They keep focusing on Travis again.
I
just keep pointing the camera at him. I'm like, what is happening here?
Wanting us to just have him sort of
in our minds.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do think something is coming with him in the teen timeline, maybe, though, we know he doesn't die, but something is on its way because the Javi stuff.
I'm starting to think, I've been seeing like little pop-ups of like, oh, maybe the Antler Queen
is a king.
And especially with him holding that card and just like, we don't see him in that scene. Otherwise, like as far as we know, we can't really match him up with any of the people in the Pit Girl feast.
I just can't see him having the motivation. He's so lazy.
Well, but he's also really impressionable and like
he is
like
he could be
movable.
I could see him being like a prop king.
And that's what I was going to say. I could see
like a puppet.
A really unsettling scene of them dressing him in the robes and putting the hood on him,
like the doom coming.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's the only way I can see that happening because he just doesn't have the.
Yeah, it's not an ambition thing for sure.
Not at all.
But I could just see it, in whatever way it happens, the reveal being that the person under those robes is Travis.
But they hold the vote. Van, Shauna, and Melissa, and then Travis, Akilah, Lottie, the two red shirts, and Mari. Mm-hmm. And I don't think Jen votes at first.
Oh, that might be right.
Because I don't see her raise her hand. And then when they re-vote, Mel hits her, and she raises her hand very gingerly. And so the voting again and again, it's a reference to 12 Angry Men, which as is the title. And then Shauna they're drinking. Oh, that's what I want to mention also. They're drinking something this entire time. There's lots of shots of a ladle that are unexplained.
Maybe that's the drunk. Maybe again, like you said, there's a scene where, but is that Barry
I feel like I
wine?
should go back and look for that. But it doesn't look, it looks more like the mushroom tea. I could be wrong. It was a quick thing.
Okay.
But Shauna finally starts berating people.
She's such a bully here. But this is where I said earlier there's a Misty line that feels so adult Misty coded. Nat saying the trial's over, Shauna, is so Juliette Lewis adult. Nat, that read is so.
Yeah, I could see that. There's all that work they did in the beginning in season 1 to kind of tie the two halves of the same person together. It does still pop up.
Yeah, it's nice to see.
But Shauna's yelling about how he tried to kill them, and she's staring everyone down.
I just can't believe this is what I mean, where it's like everybody tells they're so.
They're afraid of her.
And we keep being reminded in the adult timeline that everyone's afraid of Shauna.
Everyone's afraid of Shauna.
Exactly.
But it's not just Shauna's bullying that does this. Because the trees talk to Lottie.
Oh, right. Of course.
The trees tell Lottie
to get those couple of weird little shots that are.
And then it's it's down the line. Mm-hmm. Like the trees talk to Lottie. Lottie raises her hand. Then Travis raises his hand. And Akilah raises her hand. Her two followers right now. Mm-hmm. And with Mel bullying Jen into voting, that's the 2/3. 2/3 majority.
And Melissa loves it.
She does.
So when we first got Melissa popping up earlier this season, back in like episode 2, I think.
Yeah.
Where we were like, I wonder if she's actually into Shauna or if she's just trying to. And it's both.
I think it's both, but it's
yes.
The attraction to Shauna is for real.
But I think it is because the attraction to Shauna is because of the power. I think. Exactly. Yeah. Which she hasn't really lied about. Like she says,
no.
Yeah,
but it's advantageous to her, and she clearly is into it. Ben looks quite resigned here. Like, that flicker of hope that we felt, I think, was a lot smaller in him. Mm-hmm. I don't think he really felt like he was going to convince them.
Yeah, I don't know, Jodie.
But Shauna grabs Melissa's hand and then walks away. It's a weird, yeah.
It's because I hate to I don't hate to be hard on Shauna because it's fine. But the fact that Shauna doesn't say anything back, it's like a sort of like non-committal reciprocation. Yeah.
And I don't know. This is nitpicky. I don't think Mel needed to even say that out loud. I think it's pretty clear by their interaction that was more of an exposition that we needed.
Yeah. I think you're right.
But the last part of this scene and the last part of the wilderness that we see this episode is Lottie walking up to Travis, and he's looking at the drawing that he made on the bark, and he says it's the outcome.
They give us this as if it's a huge reveal, like as if I was a little bit like, it's the outcome. And like it could have been that picture if they had vote in either direction. If that had been the picture and Travis said it's the outcome, I would have been like, oh yeah.
Well, look, Travis isn't as good of an artist as his little brother. They're stick figures.
But I'm just like, oh look, there's Ben being elevated because they cleared him, or there's Ben being elevated because they're going to kill him. Like I think it works either way.
Sure. I've seen some questions about why there's like 3 women specifically, like if that is that a reference to anyone specific, or
is that Shauna, Van, and Mel, the original 3 who voted him guilty?
Right. Or is it like the 3 in leadership, or is it something completely different? Is it the outcome of the trial, or is it the outcome of something else? Like,
or were there 3? I don't think this. I think it was just Lottie and Travis, but let's pretend, is it adult Lottie, Misty, and Nat at
Travis being raised by the crane. Yeah. No, I know. That's what I mean about there being like other maybe possibilities, but most likely it's the obvious.
But whatever it is, it's the outcome, and he is holding the King of Hearts when he says it. So
yeah, it'll be interesting and hopefully not as terrible as I think next week. A lot of people are still on they're going to eat him alive train, which I am not off of yet either. I hope I'm wrong. I do not want to see this, but
I don't want to see that, and it will break my heart. And even for them, it feels like a kind of escalation that is, but if we get them, because they were pretty close with Travis at Doom coming. So if we get them drugged up enough, I think we could see it happen. There's
also the possibility of them like burning him alive and then eating him. Like, it's horrible things to talk about, but I do think that we mentioned this either last week or the week before, but we've been told all along that cannibalism isn't the worst of it.
Yeah.
And so whether that's an emotional evil or whether it's literally physically, they do something so terrible that it's like worse than eating a dead friend. Like, you know,
I do wonder if it has been so clear to us pretty much since day one that like it always feels like Ben's next on the chopping block, always.
Chopping block.
Yeah, right. And so there is a part of me that is still clinging to hope that it has been a sort of red herring all along, and that I joke about it, but that either they do leave him there and they think that's bad enough, or he makes it back. And when we get into the adult timeline, there's a couple of cases to be made.
I wish I could believe it.
If you ask me to weigh in right now on whether or not I think Ben makes it out of the wilderness, my answer is no. Yeah. If you ask me whether I think he makes it past the next episode, my answer is also probably no, but leaning more toward maybe.
Yeah. If so, though, in worse shape than he is in right now.
Totally. Because again, we should move on, but one thing. But something that we've been talking about a lot this season is that like it is mostly at this point innocent people who keep dying.
Right.
And they have all just,
Yes.
I mean, admitted that they think Ben is innocent and voted him guilty anyway. So he's another one who could die. Like, it's all of these people suffering because of these women unjustly. And this is like a sort of like almost like a codified version of that because they held an actual trial and still went against it.
Right. One thing to put a pin in here, too, is the fact that this whole thing about the wilderness chooses, like every time the wilderness, so to speak, has chosen, someone else has died, not the person that was
That's
chosen.
a good point.
Like Nat was chosen, Hobby died. Lottie with the present day hunt, Shauna was chosen and Nat died.
And then even in this episode, we have another kind of, well, maybe. We don't know for sure, but it seems like we have another example of that.
Exactly. Yeah. So the wilderness never actually fucking chooses.
No, of course
I actually
not.
wrote that down in my notes later. I was like, you guys are doing the choosing. Just stop fucking lying to yourselves.
Exactly.
But in the present timeline,
Yellowjackets is a comedy.
Yes. Is this the same shop that Adam worked at, or is it a different one?
Oh,
I feel
that's
like
funny.
they're all blending together to me.
Yeah, I did assume it was Adam's shop just because.
I did too.
But that would be a crazy thing for her to do.
I know. And also because it wasn't even like close to their house, the shop that he worked at.
Yeah, it probably wasn't Adam's shop.
Yeah.
That's funny. I did just like, oh, yeah, but it makes no
know.
sense for that to be the case.
I feel like I should go back and look at the pictures or the screenshots, but she's so insistent.
Oh, Shauna? Insistent despite the evidence?
Oh my God. She's a cut brake lines, right?
Let me guess. She's so confident.
The guy's like, what?
No,
What
girl.
are you talking about? Yeah. And so then he says, no, your brake booster just went. She's like, oh, so somebody fucked with my... He's like, no,
Nope.
it just went. And I would like to call back to last week when I quoted someone from Reddit saying, maybe they just don't maintain their fucking car.
Exactly. Which totally
seems very possible.
She even says, like, how do brakes just go bad all of a sudden? And, like, I don't think they did, girl. Like, I don't think it was all of a sudden. I think you ignored probably, like that person said last week, just regular maintenance, and this is what happens.
Right. But this is we get our first hint that Jeff is losing it a bit. Poor guy. This is out of his league. This is out of his experience.
He's trying so hard. I also saw somebody say that they feel like Jeff has become a cartoon character and that this episode isn't very nuanced and that he had more nuance before. And I so disagree. And I think it's silly how it plays out, but that's because he's ill-equipped to be running around in this universe.
Yeah.
But
and it is sincere, I think.
Yeah, exactly. It's sincere, and I think his character does have nuance because he's not just blindly... He is a wife guy for sure, still with Shauna, and it's crazy that he is, but he's still trying to, like...
be a good person. And,
yes.
Yeah, we've seen hints all along of cracks in his undying support for Shauna. You know, he has the dream where she has knife hands.
Yeah.
You know, we've seen him try to be a good father to Callie. Like, we've seen sincere moments from him that are funny only in the way that Jeff is like just casually funny in daily life. But then we have the over the top, like there's no book club moments. And this just happens to be that side of things in the shop.
Yeah.
I caused it. I didn't stop it.
Well, this is what I mean about, I think there is actually a little more going on here because he says it's not weird. It's karma. I caused it. He says, I caused it. Well, I didn't stop it. And then the car doesn't stop. That is karma, blah, blah, blah. But it's like Shauna will take accountability for nothing. And Jeff will take accountability for everything, whether he did it or not. Exactly.
Like, by him being so overly willing to blame himself, it points out even more that she is not willing to take responsibility for anything.
Right.
We get confirmation that Lottie definitely can afford to not stay with Shauna.
Exactly.
She comes out of a fancy bank.
In that big fur coat.
Yeah.
She doesn't just come out of a fancy bank. Somebody at that bank is holding the door for her and ready to call a car.
Yeah.
Like, Lottie's doing fine.
Yeah. She's being escorted out by security. And Ty calls.
This is another great one.
This is so funny because it's like all of their pretending that they're all doing okay is disappearing more and more day by day. Ty doesn't bother with the niceties or the fakeness that she's shown before with like Nat or Shauna.
Right.
It's literally just like she wants to know what the fuck Lottie meant by "you'll see" when they were talking at the compound. And when Lottie doesn't remember because she was fucking nuts at the time.
And you're all still leaning into this. Everything about this conversation.
Yeah. Because the thing is, when Lottie planned the hunt, she still believes in the wilderness now. She talks about it all the time. But she was in a heightened state that she's not currently in. Right now, she's worried about something else.
Right. Well, and they're all so fucking, every one of them, they're so selfish and self-obsessed and self-absorbed.
Yep.
Of course, Lottie doesn't remember what she said to Ty about Ty's situation.
Yeah.
None of them are thinking about each other except for how they can.
Right.
Except for when they need them. And that's true for all of them.
Yeah. But Lottie just unceremoniously like ends the call.
I kind of loved it.
Me too. Ty needs people to hang up on her more often, honestly.
Exactly.
We get a shot just kind of in case we didn't notice that makes sure we know that she's in the city.
Yes.
We get like a street sign and construction and
we got to make sure we know where everybody is.
Yes.
This episode.
Yeah, they're trying to set it all up.
Jeff is collecting items for the Pismo Beach disaster relief, which is a quote from Clueless, which I think you don't have memorized.
Oh, no. Yeah, no, I remember that. No. Yep. This is where Shauna has a good point. She said, I don't think people need your bootleg Rush Hour DVDs.
Some people lost all their belongings. Don't you think that includes athletic equipment?
Yes. And that's why he's putting his baseball glove in there.
Exactly. It's a very similar thing of these people who've like never really done anything like this before.
Yeah.
And they're like suddenly trying to be better people. And...
Yeah. I just need to mention that Jeff says, I went on WikiHow and I found some great tips on reversing bad karma by picking up good karma points.
Perfect.
I'm going to find that cat.
He's going to find that cat.
That's been gone for 2 years.
And again, Callie being... They're all... Callie's a teen girl, so she can remain selfish for a little while. But that her first response is, did you put any of my stuff in there? She's like...
Well, I immediately thought maybe she's worried that he took the tape. Yeah.
Oh my God, I'll bet you're right.
Yeah, it didn't occur to me right away, but then on my rewatch, I was like, oh, she's immediately worried about the tape.
That makes so much sense, because I really thought, I was like, Callie, come on. But
we don't know if she's listened to it yet. They haven't shown us that,
right. But she definitely has it.
Yeah.
It's so, I love anytime Shauna has to reckon with the fact that she's probably not a great
good
parent
person?
Or good person.
Yeah,
but
either.
Because Callie's like, why are we doing this? And Shauna's like, is it Shauna? Yeah. Shauna's like, you're asking why do charity?
Yes.
It's like,
because she is your child.
You have to instill these values in your kids.
Yes.
And guess who hasn't done that?
Exactly. But Callie thinks that she's like, oh, is it because you put Lottie out on the street?
Mm-hmm. Out on the street.
It's going to be
really
an interesting moment when she finds out what we find out at the end of this episode. But I felt so like, I felt for Jeff here because we forget these people are such like unrepentant, like you said, self-involved people that when Jeff has a human reaction to something, they both, Callie and Shauna, pause and are like, oh, he needs this.
Yeah.
Like he says he needs to do some good. And he says it in such a sincere way that Callie and Shauna are like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, Shauna is. Callie's like, yeah, fuck it. I'm not doing this. But
bring me back a karma to-go plate.
Yeah. He signed them up for volunteer work where Randy does his hours for his DUI.
Yeah. It is funny, though, because, like, that's a shitty teen thing to say and, like, whatever. But it is also kind of like, I'm almost with Callie where I'm like, you don't get all of a sudden to try to fix.
No, totally. It's like, it's nice to do these things, but, like, your motivation is not exactly pure.
Exactly.
We go to our hapless, wildly deluded pair, Ty and Van.
Insane.
They're
I know
it.
It's insane, but this is really insane.
At least Ty is losing it. We'll talk about it. I feel like the jury's still out on where Van is and all this. but they literally buy a deck of cards from like a street cart, put the queen on the side of the road to wait to see if it chooses someone.
If it chooses
I need to point out, as someone who lived in New York City for 7 or 8 years, no one picks shit up off the street.
Well, Jodie, that's how you know it's the wilderness choosing.
No one.
All of these people were compelled to pick up a card.
Even the wilderness is not touching New York trash cans. There are rats in there. Or trash bags, excuse me. There are no cans. There are rats in there.
Okay, so this is bothersome to me because now what you're doing is supporting the idea that it really is the wilderness. Because why else would anybody pick up a card? You're right.
No, there are other reasons. I feel like there's been other theories that guy's some sort of plant or connected to Lottie. I don't think any of that's necessarily true, but like...
Again, this is another example of us really wanting to... We are also pattern seeking.
Yes. But I just need to mention that no child in the city, no adult in the city is putting their hands near a trash bag. We know what's in there.
Yeah, it's nasty.
It is rats.
But I'm going to bet that's why Van and Ty are so believing in the fact that it is crazy. But let's suspend our disbelief there that like somebody was compelled. I thought,
like why does some random dude pick up a card and put it in his pocket?
Because the wilderness chose him, Jodie.
Oh my God.
That's what I mean.
I would have believed it so much more if it had stuck to that woman's heel as the third option and just walked off with her.
I agree. And then but I thought what was going to happen was, and what I kind of wish had happened was, well, not wish had happened, because what I thought might happen, what I was anticipating is, guy puts the card in his pocket, and then we spend the day with Van and Ty tailing him, waiting for something to kill him. And then maybe he gets hit by a bus, maybe whatever. He falls down a manhole, like he gets murdered. And then it becomes a kind of confirmation.
My worst fear, he walks over one of those grates over the stairs to the basement and they collapse.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But no,
they're just going to go murder him. It is a leap. And this is why the people have been complaining about Ty and Van in the present day, because it's such an escalation. For Ty, she did kill her dog. And she almost killed her wife.
It's actually not a huge escalation for Ty.
It's more the doing it in the daylight again thing, where they're like just actually she may be a other Ty in this moment, but she's presenting as a
I think she's been reintegrated. Adult. I think I don't know that there is a
No, I agree.
An other Ty and a regular Ty at this point.
I agree. She's almost entirely other Ty. But the difference for me is that in the earlier seasons, when she was quote unquote other Ty, it was like she almost looked like she turned into a witch. Like not literally, but like now she has been reintegrated. Now that both are existing at the same time, she could pretend like she's a normal woman, adult person, but she's actually being run by this other force.
Yeah, I think I totally think that's the case. Also, Needle Drop Fresh Blood by Eels is very funny.
It is very funny. I noted that as well.
Yeah. It really chose someone.
Yeah.
Because we put a card down, someone picked it up, and then we decided we're going to kill him.
Yeah.
Like,
you chose.
What are we doing? I mean, I know what we're doing. I don't know why I ever act surprised. This is how it's always been, but
I know.
It's just the way that they're continuing to remind us over and over again.
Yeah. We go over to Misty's job. Jeff is so funny. Is there something going on with you two right now? Jeff.
I know.
There's always something going on with Shauna and these fucking crazy people from the wilderness. Come on. This is where we get the other line, though. Misty comes up to the car, thinks that
it's so funny. We probably won't even see her, and then again, shows a comedy.
Yeah. She thinks that Shauna's there to apologize. And Shauna says, I should mail you the bill for our breaks.
Should I mail it here or to the mountain where you lay your eggs? Brutal.
Perfect.
I love Shauna. She's unforgivably, unrepentantly a terrible person and an asshole. Yep. And she is so funny.
Yep.
Or should I mail it here or to the mountain where you lay your eggs? It's so specific.
She's got lots of good burns.
Oh,
just
brutal.
waiting.
So funny.
And Misty thinks that by putting her on tapioca duty, she's really going to get her. Mm-hmm. Which shows Misty's lack of understanding as well of human nature. Shauna doesn't give a fuck. But anyway, before we get to that, we have a quick shot of Van and Ty following this guy. Mm-hmm. He's carrying dry cleaning of a young girl's dress. They follow him into his apartment building and then up the stairs after him. Are you kidding me? Yeah.
I really have nothing.
They've just gone too far. I know. I have nothing either.
So crazy.
I'd rather go back to Randy at bingo for the moment because that's what the show does. He just can't do it. He doesn't have the natural charm that Jeff has.
They're that kind of duo. You know what I like? We've got the charmer and then his sidekick. And sorry,
and the natural
Randy.
order is resolving itself here, where the leader has come in and is putting Randy back in his place as sidekick.
It's so good. Now this is bingo. My man.
Yeah. Thank God that biopsy came back B9.
B9.
I wrote, okay, Jeff the comic. Randy looks a little put off.
Yeah.
But Misty goes into Svetlana's room, which we never really saw whether or not Walter got this random adult woman into the nursing home, but I guess he did.
Right. And has been coming to see her because the fact that he hasn't been to see her is worth remark.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And she's doing a puzzle. Mm-hmm. Walter's favorite thing. Only one, though. Not two at a time.
Yeah, I mean, come on. Not everybody can do 2 puzzles at once.
It's taken her 4 weeks because it's the hardest puzzle she's ever done.
I thought that was funny. That's so specific. Almost 4 weeks.
I know. It is specific. And also the fact that she's doing a puzzle immediately the whole time, I'm like, what is the puzzle? Show us the puzzle.
I know.
Why can't we see
it? Google Lens what little bit we got, but yeah.
I think it's one of those, like, we want it to be something and maybe it just isn't, but she has a blank piece of paper next to her that Misty is convinced is a message.
Yet again, they just keep showing us over and over. That was the letter. That was for my letter to the comptroller.
Yeah. No, okay. Misty takes it.
Mm-hmm. Not yet.
Not yet, but she does end up taking it. We get ace of base.
Perfect
Needle drop for a moment when Shauna is just like obliviously smashing tapioca, possibly cooking it.
She's really enjoying it.
She's having a great time.
All you do all day is cook for your family. This is supposed to be more of that monotony.
Yeah, Shauna is being purposely obtuse here. She's still blaming Misty for the breaks.
Is she being purposefully obtuse, do you think? Or is it so ingrained in her to not just never take accountability, but also to always need an enemy or something to be conspiring against her?
I think it could be either. Like, I think she could just spitefully be like, no, I've decided it's you, so it's you.
Oh, like dear Ben?
Yeah, exactly.
Impossible for her to apologize. Like, it just does not exist in her.
I saw somebody post on Reddit that one of the underlying themes of this episode is apologies and how no one can fucking do them except for in this case Ben. Yeah. And Jeff is attempting to karmically apologize.
Right.
And something I'm going to get to in the next scene. This is where we see the scene that everybody was curious about from the trailer of Misty stabbing Shauna. Of course it's in her imagination. Uh-huh. But talk about the show being a comedy. The purposeful overacting that Christina Ricci does here with Misty's face right before she decides in her mind, in her dream palace, that she's going to stab Shauna is so fucking funny.
Yeah.
It's so good. And then she's, I'm telling you, she's the most grounded to reality of all of these people. She says, this is not healthy. And she goes to leave.
Mm-hmm. But it's also very funny to say this is not healthy. Her, like, in a spat with one of her friends, but she didn't say that about cutting up a body or, you know what I mean?
No.
But still, yeah, good for her.
She decides to go home. She grabs the letter from Svetlana's table, as well as some puzzle pieces, which is just mean.
It's so mean. I really, when Shauna was like last week, somebody did something to you and we were laughing, whatever. I kind of hope we find out that she had a really awful grandparent or something so that I can feel a little more sympathetic about her mistreating old people so terribly.
Yeah, that there's at least some sort of like linkage to a childhood trauma of some kind.
She was like keeping like pain medication and
morphine,
stuff. Yeah, from an old person in the first.
Well, we compared her to the nurse in Jersey.
Yeah,
Angel of Death.
The Angels of Death, yeah.
Yeah.
So.
But speaking of apologies, Lottie is practicing apologizing to someone in the mirror. Before I saw the ending of this episode, this felt to me like she was acting or trying to put on a face of like, how should I look when I apologize to get what I need to happen next?
That's what I thought. I wonder if it's both things happening, that she went into this practicing because she wasn't sorry. And we've seen just her whole vibe this whole time has been very that. And knowing these girls has been very that. That second where she does kind of crack it at the end, it's like, oh, did she finally lock into this performance? Or is there something peeking through that's real? And I don't think we're supposed to know. She calls herself Charlotte in this scene.
Yeah. Though. I thought it was interesting, especially knowing what we know about the end of the episode, too, that this is one of those moments where they flip from adult Lottie to teen Lottie sitting on the stand, I believe, at the trial.
Well, and should we talk here about who she could be apologizing to, or should we save it for the end?
I think we should save it for the end when we'll just have our speculation about what actually happened there.
Okay. But yeah, I noticed that too. I thought that was possibly telling.
Shauna goes into the walk-in.
And again.
Did you worked at a deli? Your mom worked at a deli, right?
My mom worked at a deli, yeah. And I worked fast food as a kid. We had a walk-in as well.
You had a walk-in. That is my worst nightmare. The bagel shop I worked at in high school didn't have air conditioning. And so in the summer with the bagel ovens, the walk-in was like where we would go to kind of...
It's also where you go to cry sometimes.
Dry off the sweat. Oh, for sure. Good place to cry. But she goes in, she drops the burgers, and then that door closes hard, I noted.
It does close hard, but we did watch The Bear, and sometimes those doors
you just get locked in.
Yeah.
I know. This is another of many, 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 many examples of like, did the door just close on its own? And she's fucking paranoid and thinks she's being followed? Or did somebody trap her in there?
Right.
Why, of all things, if you're trying to break open a door, do you grab frozen meat? There are so many other things in that room. There are metal shelves. There are like big giant pots on the top shelf that I saw. Why grab a fucking rib eye steak or whatever the hell? I don't know meat. But why did she grab a frozen chunk of meat?
Because these women aren't great under pressure. I said these women. I didn't say, it sounded like I said women aren't great under pressure. But what I said was these women aren't great under pressure.
I just thought it was so fitting. She's like, what can I use to open this door? Well, a meat hammer.
Right.
Perfect. And Jackie's back.
It's so good. It's a little on the nose, but it's also so fun that it's in a meat locker, that it's in a walk-in freezer.
I also think it's really smart in a way what they've done with Jackie post her death. I was thinking about this before. I was like, she's so one-dimensional now. She's just snarky and like picking at Shauna, but she's Shauna.
Exactly.
Like she's not Jackie.
Right.
She's the Jackie that Shauna is making up in her mind and keeping around. So like, of course she's one-dimensional because she's just the version of Jackie that Shauna sees.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think it's actually quite smart. I was like thinking of it as a deficit because I'm like, I miss like actual Jackie having a personality. And I'm like, but that Jackie's actually dead.
Right.
This is Shauna's like...
And Shauna never really saw her that way in the first place. So.
Exactly.
We get back to...
this apartment building situation. Everything is a sign if you're looking for signs.
Yes, exactly.
He didn't lock the door right away. So that's a sign. I do like her saying to Ty, you're not butch enough to have locksmith tools.
It is interesting that Van is the one here who... Or it's not interesting. It makes sense, but...
Well, because we've been speculating about what's actually going on with Van behind the scenes. Like, there's definitely some suspicion that's been thrown in this I almost said this semester, this season, about what Van is doing when we're not seeing her, what she's really thinking about all of this. Is she convinced that the wilderness, quote unquote, works for her, or is it she's humoring Ty? But here seems like a pretty clear, for whatever reason, she's trying to steer Ty away from this.
Right. Though she was ready to go all the way up to his door. So I guess that's what's interesting to me is where she finally draws the line.
Yeah. She's definitely thrown by the fact that he was carrying the dress of a small child also. But she says, I want to live, but not like this. Fuck the wilderness. Can we just enjoy the time we have left? And so this, given the shaky hand we see later, I was like, time we have left, maybe she's not in remission, or maybe she thinks that it's not real, or I don't know.
Put a pin in the shaky hand.
But Ty is willing to be redirected. Jeff is now with the seniors at a table doing his best Christopher Walken impression. And he's totally putting Randy in his place in such a kind of like dismissive way. He tells him to go get snacks.
And sodas. And a deck of cards.
Yeah.
And then he tells my favorite joke. Do you know this joke?
I don't. I just wrote down the first part. Pirate walks into a bar. Bartender asks, why you got a steering wheel in your pants?
I don't know, but it's driving me nuts.
Oh my God. That's perfect. That is a perfect Jeff joke.
Yeah.
I love that so much. Shauna's calling for help while Jackie says maybe this is exactly how it was going to end for you, frozen and left for dead.
Just like me.
Yeah. Someone is fucking with you and you're not actually doing anything about it, which is true.
Or nobody's fucking with her.
Right. Exactly.
And
it's Shauna saying that to herself. She also says, I'm the most interesting thing about you.
Oof.
Yeah. But Randy comes to the rescue. I love those cookies that he grabbed. Those Pizzelle,
the
whatever they're
Pizzelles,
called. Yeah, those are really good. But he lets her out, and she runs to the front desk.
She doesn't even say thank you, I don't think.
Nope. Runs right past him. Asks where Misty is because she locked her in the... Again, she thinks Misty locked her in the fridge, but she is told that Misty left hours ago.
Where did Misty go?
I mean, I believe she probably went home.
I think she went home too. But where did Misty go?
Yeah. She went home to feed Caligula or something. This part was really funny. Jeff comes home. Shauna got a cat. She went into Manhattan. Again, they're trying everything they can to make sure we don't know exactly, like we have many possibilities for what happens next. But Shauna went to all these different shelters to find a cat that matches the cat in the flyer that Jeff found.
Insane. Do we have a cat now? We cannot have a cat now.
I know. I also wrote the way she's holding it. There's a scene where they show them from the side, and she's holding the cat like you would hold a baby in a baby Bjorn where the legs are sticking straight out. It's so funny. That is a well-trained cat. Most cats would not tolerate that. That's like a ragdoll or something special. And he believes for a minute she found the cat that's been missing for 2 years. Jeff, she says that cat is absolutely dead. Oh, Jeff.
But the owners don't have to know that.
She's so bad at this. And he sees it. She's so bad at doing nice things, like sincerely. Instead, she's like, let's just lie to these people. It'll get us more karma points.
Since
It's just another incident of like Jeff's sincerity pointing out her insincerity.
And he calls her on it for a second.
Can we not give notes on my karma, please?
And that is enough for him. Like he sees what's going on with her, but he's such a supportive wife guy that he then...
And also, everyone is afraid of Shauna.
That's also true.
Including her husband.
Right.
Which we know from the dream.
It's like, maybe it's important to remember too that they knew each other when she was young Shauna as well.
Yeah.
So like she was,
and he read her journals. Like he knows exactly what they did.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's a very good point.
He's a willing participant, but also I think afraid of her.
And so he says, it's thoughtful.
Yeah.
And look at him, this guy.
I really like that cat.
That's a very good cat.
But we get a call back next to one of the things that we were so like touched by in the first season.
And that I remember saying, I just hope because I don't think
it. Yeah.
I don't think we knew Van made it.
We didn't.
To the present. And I remember saying like, oh God, I hope Van's around and we get to see this happen. And it made me cry.
Yeah.
But it's such a bummer.
It's so not what we wanted it to be. You know, it's like manipulative and sort of tinged with all of this deception and confusion. And
the only reason they're even doing it is because Ty is like, it feels to me like Ty is worried that she's going to lose her hold on
Yeah,
van
maybe.
because of what happened earlier in the day.
Or
and
it's a distraction.
Right, exactly.
You know.
Which we've seen her do. Like, that's how they ended up at that fancy diner in the first place.
Yeah.
Or fancy diner. That's what I think restaurants are. Restaurants are just, are just fancy diners.
Yeah. Michelin star is just a really good diner. The lobster is actually fresh.
And then when
you can actually order the lobster at the diner. That's a Michelin star restaurant.
And then when that wasn't working for her, she pivoted again, and that's how they ended up. Anyway, like, it just it's so Ty that she did this, and it doesn't feel as like what exactly, like you said, what I wanted it to be.
We get a perfect needle drop here, though. Another cranberries.
Perfect.
I know.
Just linger if you missed it.
Yeah, but it's perfect.
You're probably. If you're listening to our podcast, you
probably
I
think you know.
And we get that shot of Van's hand shaking.
Yeah.
That you mentioned.
Yeah, she goes to buy a pretzel with Ty's money because she doesn't have any. What did Van do with her shop? These people have no actual personal responsibilities. Ty, like, left her state senate job before she was disgraced, whatever. Like, none of these people, except Misty, who has an actual job.
That she goes to, That
she actually goes to, are, like, living normal adult lives outside of all this craziness.
I know.
But I wrote, is she lying about the cancer?
Well, or did she kill the guy?
Yeah, that's the thing. She also says it was adrenaline from the day.
She's another one. It could be anybody.
Or Lottie.
Or did she kill Lottie?
Like, any of them could have killed Lottie, just like any of them could have burned down the cabin.
Right, exactly.
Or Lottie could have fallen down some stairs. We'll get to that in 1 second. I'm like so jumping ahead. So then this last scene, Misty is looking at the blank paper, trying to find a message.
I really wanted there to be one.
I know.
I was like, oh, maybe she'll throw it in the fire like she did that picture, and the heat she'll notice will reveal the message.
You're thinking like Misty.
Yeah, maybe she won't notice it, but we will. And then we'll get to know that he really is trying to...
Misty's getting in your head. But then thankfully she goes to the Citizen Detective Board. I want to just for the humor of it, I want to read some of the post titles because I screenshotted this. The first one says, "Divorce isn't so bad, guys."
Do you think that's Tammy?
Maybe. The next one is, "Someone deciphered this," and it's like a group of letters and numbers. And then the next one is my favorite. "Is it possible to promote vine growth in such a way that the vines spell out words?" I love this. This is such a Reddit clone. A double homicide was committed last week in Raleigh, and a surviving pet sugar glider was the only witness. Anyone else thinking what I'm thinking?
Maybe.
So fucking good. And then the important one, body found, info still coming in with like a warning screen.
Yeah.
And then she immediately gets a text from Walter. "I heard about Lottie. Are you okay?" In all caps in my notes. "Suspicious." And we see the photo that was flashed in the trailer of a person, Lottie, in a silky dress or nightgown or whatever, at the bottom of the stairs, surrounded by candles, like the vision that she had during the baptism scene.
Exactly.
With Laura Lee.
And that's a wrap.
Yep.
On Lottie Matthews.
Crime scene tape, camera flashes, end scene. I think before we get into theories, because this is where we are, I want to just bring up that interview that you mentioned earlier with Simone Kessel in Variety. I don't want to dwell on it because it's not like great. It's not cheerful. But the author asked her about the whole arc of her character. And he says, this week we get to this season and this episode, and she as an adult has evaporated and that storyline wasn't explored. How do you feel about that? And she says, "I don't know what happened in that writer's room or whether they decided that they wanted to bring in a fresh character or just have the three main girls."
Three main girls.
I don't know. I think that's a question for Jonathan, Ashley, and Bart. As an actor, you always think, was it something I did? Was it my performance? Could I have done it differently? Simone,
you've been so
You're beautiful.
Good.
You're
Yeah.
perfect. She said, "I just felt it was premature because I wanted to see where Lottie was going. So to have that just cut off didn't feel good."
Well, this is why it feels to me like I'm wondering if the writers of this show were worried because they knew about how people received season 2, that they weren't going to get anything past season 3, and so they're writing toward a finale that could work as a finale if we need it, which makes me then nervous for what would season 4 and 5 look like if they do get extended. So who knows? I'm wildly speculating there.
Yeah, of course. I will say if they kind of push and wrap up a bunch of stuff by the end of season 3, to me, the positive flip side of that is that there's a lot, like, I understand that this is a story about teen girls trapped in the wilderness, but like, I kind of want to go back to Jersey.
I would be here. Okay, so here's the truth. I want
to be in Jersey when they get back.
Nobody else will be happy except for you, me, and our handful of Jersey listeners.
Give me every reference to fucking, but if the shore. And
there's a part of me that's like, if they wrap up Wilderness and Adult Timeline, if season 3 ends with everybody but Misty dead, for example, and then season 4 is just all them like learning
going
about
to Seaside.
Yeah, exactly. And learning that like Princess Di is no longer, like, I would watch an entire season of them, and then because there is a lot they could do with that, because we know, like Jackie says, what you did when you got back. Right. There's still stuff that has to happen in Jersey in the 90s.
We also know that like when they got back, a lot of other stuff happened. Shauna and Jeff ended up getting together. Ty went to Howard and got her law degree and like moved into the city and like was a lawyer.
How do you think people will feel about
not great
a season that is just all? I think that's really cool, and I think it would be brave of them to flip the script like that.
Yeah,
so
I'd be down, but I don't know that a lot of people would be.
But then in that case, killing Lottie in episode 4, if we only have 6 left, isn't that crazy.
Yeah, exactly. And I just want to quote one more thing from this article. She does say in response to a similar question, she says, "We do see what happened to Lottie in episode 10. We find out what happened to her and how she died." Now, that could just be specific language she has been coached to use so that we don't speculate or have any information about what happened. But she did notably not say who killed Lottie.
Right. My little pet theory that I'm building is that she wasn't murdered.
Yeah, I'm totally on board with that as well. The last thing I want to mention from this article is just a fun little Simone Kessel note. The interviewer says, "In your downtime, you play pickleball. You've gone from the antler queen to pickleball queen. How did that happen?" She's fucking serious about it.
Yeah.
She said, "When I was in Monterey filming her next project, I joined a racket club. When I went back to Australia, I got a sponsorship and won the Australian Open. I now play mixed doubles and am the captain of the major pickleball league." What the fuck, Simone?
That rules.
And she's still acting, obviously. She's in another thing coming out, something called The Last Frontier. But I'm obsessed with the idea of Simone Kessel, our goddess in like long robes, being like a pickleball champion, our cult leader.
Wait, that reminds me of, I think isn't it Beth Stelling who plays?
Yes, it is. It's tennis though, right?
Field hockey.
Oh, field hockey. That's it. Right.
She's on the national field hockey team.
I know. It's so random when people have other like skills at that level. Oh my God. Okay. Theory corner. There's a couple of big questions that I see here, most of which we have already brought up. What happened to Lottie? Is someone actually following Shauna? If so, who?
Right.
What's going to happen to Ben?
What was everybody doing in those few hours in New York that we like? But yeah, that's a specific small one. But
well, I mean, that's basically connected to what happened to Lottie, because you know, if none of them killed Lottie, it doesn't matter what they were doing, and it's just to throw suspicion at everyone.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
And like, why was Van's handshaking?
Yeah, because that, especially with Van and Ty missing there that hour that we don't have, it's, you know, did Ty go back and kill that guy while Van was taking the path train?
Right. It's a lot, though, to find Lottie. We don't know that she knows exactly where she is. She just knows she's in the city.
No, I'm not saying...
You're talking about the other guy, yeah.
The other guy. Yeah. I don't think she killed Lottie.
I guess what I'm just wondering is, like, for the people that are speculating that Van or Ty killed Lottie, that's a lot to do in an hour.
Yeah.
That's
it's a lot to do for any of them. Like,
yeah.
I don't, again,
to find her.
Yeah, I don't think, and like we specifically saw Ty ask where Lottie was and Lottie not tell her.
Yeah.
So it's not
She'd
even
heard
just
construction, but like,
right. Yeah,
that's the entire
exactly
Eastern Seaboard.
It's not even just we could be like, well, she told her off camera. Like we know Lottie is not interested in Ty knowing where she is.
Right.
Who was Lottie going to apologize to? And is that person the person who
killed her?
Right. Again, I don't think anybody killed her, but
the options that we are presented with, right? Shauna was in the city. Van and Ty were in the city. Misty was not. We don't think.
Well,
that we know
but we don't know where Misty was, and we know that her whereabouts were unaccounted for several hours.
Exactly. So there's the four of them.
Ben,
there's Walter.
Okay, so hold on. Walter and motivation. I mean, we know the women all have their own motivation, so that makes sense. Walter, because
he wants to eliminate the people in Misty's life that she depends on, so she comes back to him.
Right.
Also would explain if he cut her brakes.
Right.
Shauna's brakes.
And the fact that he knew, like, the timing of him reaching out to her about Lottie dying.
Oh, that was the first clue for me. Was
and
like,
of course, he's also lurking on the citizen detective board, so that's the...
It could go either way.
Yeah.
Just like Mel.
Probably.
But then the other two options are accident or suicide.
Right.
You know? I hope that they don't go the suicide route. I really do.
I think accidental suicide is my...
Right.
little theory.
I mean, I feel like it would make, considering that according to her, Travis's death was an accident, it would actually be sort of perfect if she was doing some sort of ritual, and fell.
We know they think having a near-death experience gets you close to the wilderness, and that's how you commune.
Yeah.
And or not even just near-death experience. So early on in this episode, I said I wanted to put a pin in the conversation Lottie has with Akila about the cave.
Yeah, let's do that.
And we know that Lottie is very into mind-altering substances helping you connect.
Yep.
And that in that cave, that happened.
Yeah.
I think Lottie is going to get really into like microdosing carbon monoxide poisoning or gas poisoning, whatever that is.
Interesting.
Like, I think we're going to see her.
There were some
maybe
pipes
Travis,
in that basement.
Yeah, back in that cave. And that, or oxygen deprivation to the brain. Because where did Travis get the idea and the fact that Lottie was there?
Yeah.
I think, we're going to
true.
find out that
It's a really good theory.
memory we saw of her with Travis, I bet we get another take on that where we see that she was way more active in that,
right?
And then that she's trying to do it again in that basement with the pipes for whatever reason.
That's a really solid theory,
because somebody set up candles, and somebody also set up candles in the barn with Travis.
Yes. And those candles, to me, because of what we just saw last week, immediately reminded me of the candle that Van is holding that flashes when
I think Lottie set them up, and for some reason already knew. I don't know how she figures out that hallway, stairwell, tunnel thing
has a carbon monoxide problem.
Right. But and maybe it's not even carbon monoxide, maybe because maybe it's just that cave that gives them the inspiration that lack of oxygen to the brain is actually and she did something else, or somebody else is there with her.
Yeah, I feel like it's not going to be necessarily something as scientifically sounding as lack of oxygen. I feel like it's going to be more like this underground place with this, and it'll be lack of oxygen, but she's going to couch it in something. But she thinks
it's right. The thing I am most interested in now in this episode is who Lottie was going to apologize to.
Yeah.
I think that's... she's got a list a mile long of people she could be apologizing to.
So my first guess, based on my initial read of that scene, where I felt like she was being fake and trying to act her way through it, is that she was going to go apologize to Shauna to get back in with Callie, or to have her allowed to see Callie or something like that, because I think she's still convinced that Callie is the key to all of it.
That's one. I also, while we're talking through these, is the money that she withdrew related to this apology? So,
or is it related to, if they do go the suicide route, is it related somehow to that? Somebody on Reddit had mentioned someone named Mini Shack 5 in response to a different theory, talked about it seeming like a getting her final affairs in order scene. And then the next person said, these comments make me wonder if she was in the bank putting Callie as her beneficiary since she has no heirs that we know of.
oh my God, that would be amazing because Jeff would love it and Shauna would be furious.
Yes. And just to complete this thought, this is from Reddit also, from someone named Infinite Ravioli. Great name. This was what started this conversation that said, has anyone considered that maybe Lottie killed herself? This might be a reach, but I can't think of who she would be practicing an apology for. She's cut ties with Shauna, blah, blah, blah. I think it was Shauna, but this person says, my thought is that she was practicing her apology for Natalie after she dies and sees her again, saying sorry for how the last hunt went down. She might have realized that the whole thing was wrong and Nat copped the fallout. I don't think that's probably what's true, but it was really beautiful.
I don't either, but I love that. And it does explain the tears of her, like, not so much crying about the apology, but reckoning with her own death.
Yeah.
I don't think that's the case, but I do like that. That's a fun reading.
Yeah.
There's also Lisa. It's quite possible.
Yeah, where the hell did Lisa go? I miss her.
I don't know. And they've been
I like her a lot.
I did too. And they planted seeds that there was more to Lisa than we knew, like having her be adopted and like they're just
but they do that.
Yeah,
with Adam, like
exactly.
You know, maybe Lisa's just a one season prop, sadly.
But it could go either way. Like I think that could also be a possibility. There's just something I want to throw out here.
Okay.
People keep saying things about what if blah, blah, blah is somebody's baby from the wilderness? What if they had a baby and put up for adoption? And everybody keeps saying like, yeah, but 9 months, like, you know, we know they're getting, doesn't mean they deliver another baby in the wilderness. If Travis has sex with any of those girls 10 minutes before they get on the rescue plane, there could be a baby. And I'm only saying that because of people speculating about Lisa being Nat's kid and how that would be impossible, blah, blah, blah. I think the years don't match up, or maybe they do. Whatever. I don't remember. But point just being, I'm not totally counting out the idea of a child we don't know about showing up at some point also.
Totally.
Maybe Lottie and Travis have sex in that carbon monoxide cave and then Lisa's born.
Yeah, that'll produce a healthy child. One other theory thing I wanted to mention, the 3 figures in the drawing that Travis does. Mm-hmm. Somebody pointed out Sammy has a drawing of 3 spooky figures over his bed, and Van has 3 spooky figures over her after the wolf attack. And then Travis says this is the outcome, a dead person with 3 figures standing by. Just something to consider, this repetition of this theme. Mm-hmm. So what do we think is going to happen to Ben? We already kind of talked about this, but he's not long for the world, and they're going to do something really terrible to him.
I don't want to place a bet on any of them yet, only because I am holding out a rational hope that Ben makes it.
I know.
But I don't, especially with this show, like, I just don't think we can trust that anybody makes it at any point. But options are, it's a trial, he's guilty, they shoot him.
I mean, we do see Shauna shooting a gun. They made it look like she was shooting Mel, but not necessarily.
Yeah, we still don't know where Hilary Swank is. We haven't seen any of that.
Right.
They murder him in a much more horrific way, which is, I think, more likely than just shooting him.
Right.
And that is the thing, one of the things that they still haven't spoken about. Mm-hmm. There's also, somehow they come to a begrudging decision based on like Nat as leader to just send him back into the wilds.
I just can't see it happening. Shauna's too. But maybe that's the thing that splits them.
Right.
That's been the speculation, is what splits them is whether or not they should kill the coach in cold blood.
Maybe it's not begrudging. Maybe Nat figures out a way to sneak him away and the woods are big. Yeah. Maybe the thought for me for a long time was they get rescued. They know Ben's still alive before the trial and leave him. And then that's where my joke of him still being that he somehow makes it back in present day. It's still not totally impossible. Again, I'm mostly joking, but he could make it. And maybe Lottie's going, because here was my thought today watching this episode. Here was my thought. It's Lottie who turns the tide. Shauna does the bullying, but it's Lottie who raises her hand.
Yeah.
And then Travis and Tequila go with that vote.
Yeah.
So it's Shauna, but it's Lottie's the one to fold. And so Ben is somebody who could use an apology too.
Right. The only catch for me on that is that
Ben's not making it.
Well, besides that, but is that she would have to believe that the wilderness wasn't talking to her and that she was wrong to make that decision. And I think she's a believer to the end. Right.
Unless she has some other motivation where she has to say that, even if she doesn't believe it. I don't know. This is a desperate woman.
I know. It feels like it's getting stretched thinner and thinner, but
it is but the possibility is there, I think. In the pie chart of possibilities, I think there's a sliver of that.
I'll give you a sliver.
What else? I think those are all of the options for Ben, right?
Yeah.
Or something senseless happens because also they're out in the wilderness and like Jackie freezing to death. He like trips.
Javi fell in a lake.
Exactly.
Like none of these have they actually, even Shauna killing Adam was like in a moment of like a flashback passion. It was like an accident. Mm-hmm. After she stabbed, it wasn't an accident, excuse me. But after she stabbed him, she looked surprised.
Right.
Like it wasn't that she was like, went there to kill him.
Right. And then there's also just while this isn't an also, but this is like while we're laying all this stuff out. What happens to Van and Ty when they go to kill a man, decide not to? They go to kill a man that they think the wilderness has told them to kill, decide not to, and Lottie dies.
Yeah, totally. I mean, the fallout from Lottie's death is going to be, I think, probably the focus of most of the rest of the season, or at least partly. But yeah, they're totally going to think that that's who was chosen somehow.
Especially because it does, in a weird way, mirror Nat gets chosen.
Yes.
Javi dies.
And Shauna gets chosen. Nat dies.
Nat dies.
Right.
Interesting. Do you think maybe the last one is somebody gets chosen and they kill that person? Do you know what I mean? And then the wilderness is like, guys, it's what I've been fucking saying all along.
Yeah. I don't know. I do think that we're going to go from these like quote unquote accidental or acts of passion deaths to something more calculated, at least by some of them. And that may be where the divide comes.
Right.
While we're talking about the Ty thing, I have one more. Reading Reddit has become too much of a habit in my life, but I think we need a light note as we're tying things up because we needed one in the beginning. And this made me laugh out loud when I read it on Reddit. So someone named...
is that why they call it that?
Probably. So someone with the username Derelict posted, Thaisa was going to 1000% waltz into the dude's apartment and maul him to death with an omelet pan in front of his kids to spend 6 more weeks with Van. It's certainly a form of commitment. The next person, Suzerain, says, bruh, she was down to kill that kid if she picked up the card. And mom too, naturally. Next person, Leafs Broncos 18, says, other Ty just leaving queen cards with peanut butter on the floor until their dog picked one up. Suzerain, the wilderness, quote, it's a stretch, but I guess it'll do. The people are funny out there.
But exactly, though.
I know.
Like, that's what's happening with these women, I think. I don't know.
I know. Also, somebody else mentioned that when they did the vote, they should have done a blind vote, which makes sense. And someone else said, heads up, 7-Up.
That rules.
Yeah.
Yeah, that trial was a fucking kangaroo court.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah,
100%.
Exactly.
So
I think
funny.
even in a real jury trial, don't they, or did they do, I don't know. I've never been on a jury. But like,
well,
I
they
would assume
deliberate behind closed doors and then...
So it's a blind vote to everyone else, but not to them.
Right.
Okay.
And again, there was no deliberation.
No, it was a bullying thing.
Yeah. So wild.
Which, maybe is how it is in the real world.
How it is for teen girls, for sure.
Yes, 100%. I think we covered it.
Yeah, I think so.
I feel like I get the sort of more lukewarm reaction to this episode. I also get the enthusiasm for it because they're willing to just go for it and push things. And I do actually appreciate that a lot more than, like, I would rather them take big swings and occasionally miss than just, like, sit on it for a while and, like, wait it out and see how people react. Like, they basically said as much about the second season, that they got a little too in their heads about what people were going to think.
Right.
And this season, they were just like, fuck it.
I mean, I love that. I think
I would
that's
prefer
great.
that.
I'm having a good time either way.
Yes, same.
It is just real quick, something I've been thinking about.
Yeah.
The weather has been so nice and nobody is, you could go miles in any direction and still make it back to camp before winter. Like four of them should be out going north, south, east, west as far as they can for 3 months and then turning around and coming back if they don't find anything. It's crazy that they are just fully camped out.
Yeah. No, you're totally correct.
They love it here. They're having a great time. They don't want to leave. And also, next week is called Did Ty Do That? And now we've got a list of things, though, because did Ty burn the cabin down? Did Ty
kill Lottie?
Did Ty kill that
apartment?
guy?
Right. So many things Ty could have done.
Mm-hmm. Which is funny, because last week I was like, oh, Ty definitely burned the cabin down, because that episode is called Did Ty Do That? But now who knows?
There is a trailer for it.
It's about Lottie. She's dead.
We found him guilty. I say if Ben wanted to play with fire, then we give him fire.
It feels fishy. I need to leave this house.
That was what made me think about the burning him alive thing, because I watched this last night. Most notable things there for me are that line from Shauna about giving him fire, and then also the sort of like group citizen detective activity that seems to be about to happen.
It's so funny. I'm always thinking about it from a showrunner perspective, where I'm like, if they're going to burn him alive, is it too obvious to give us that in the trailer?
Sure, yeah.
Or not. Or are they assuming that that's what I will think, and it's a double
How
bluff?
many levels deep are we going?
It's like, you know.
No, I know.
It's like the Princess Bride. It's a double bluff. But yeah, also though, that scream that looks guttural and terrible could also be the tearing him apart, or the really morbid one of cutting him apart piece by piece.
I know.
And keeping him alive.
I feel like they've been like dropping hints that it's going to be that terrible, and I really kind of hope that it's something like where the man with no eyes was an ice cream mascot.
Right.
Where it's like, you know, he falls off a cliff and they're like, well, okay, wilderness chose, let's eat him.
And he lands on crystal.
You know, they're chasing him or something and he like trips and falls off a cliff.
Yeah, exactly.
That would make me much happier.
I would be, yeah. But I am worried about him.
Yes.
And then, yeah, like you said, the citizen detectiveness of it all. Just the idea of all of them being on a caper like Scooby-Doo investigators, but it just turns out that Lottie
fell or something.
or you know, thinks that she's got a handle on how much of whatever the vision-inducing system she has developed, you know, like
her magic gas.
Yeah. So who knows?
Her magic cave. Yeah. We will find out soon enough, it seems.
Yeah, I really am starting to feel more and more likely that we are going to see, even if we don't see the actual rescue happen, that season 3 ends with whatever kicks off rescue. Jodie, when are we going to see Hilary Swank?
Oh my God. I did read somewhere that it's going to be later in the season than we anticipated. The thing that they did, they shot themselves in the foot by like having her be so prominent in all of the preseason trailers and videos, because apparently she was never going to show up until later in the season. There's a lot of build up to, and I think I mentioned this. No, this was something I posted on Reddit. Who knows what I'm doing anymore, but it was something about how for it to matter to us enough, if Melissa or someone connected to Melissa shows up, we need a bit more of Melissa and Shauna in the past to kind of make us care as much as they want us to, or set up whatever the sort of reaction Shauna has is. Mm-hmm. So
it'll be interesting, because I'm assuming, again, most of us are assuming, except for the people who think that Hilary Swank is going to be grown up Mari for some reason.
I do not understand that one.
So wild. But since we are operating under the assumption that Hilary Swank is Melissa, oh boy, when Shauna and Melissa make it back, still in Melissa's mind an item, and Shauna ends up with Jeff.
Yeah. All bisexuals end up with men eventually.
The idea that Jeff
kidding.
The idea that Jeff is the right one. You know how I'm saying right one to not be totally disgusting, but that's the argument is bisexual women just haven't found the right guy.
Yeah.
And that it's Jeff, who I love with my whole heart, but like, come on. Yeah.
Oh boy. I did not mean that. Okay. Where can they find us?
We're at WatchersPodNJ on Instagram. They can shoot us an email at watcherspodnj@gmail.com.
That's
which
true.
We love.
And they can find me on Instagram at Jodie_Mim, JODIE_MIM.
And I'm at AQ, Andrea Q.
And we will see you next week. Where?
I mean, in the wilderness.
We'll see you next week on a caper.
Hell yeah.
Let's go have a caper.
I can't wait to have a caper. I'm so excited. Okay, we're leaving.
A caper with Walter.
I'm so excited for Walter to come back. I've missed him terribly.
Yes, we'll see you next week having an adventure with Walter.
Every moment without him is torture.
Bye.